Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Odin's movie blog. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope you're doing well, and today we're going to be talking about the box office for this upcoming weekend, as there are a couple of films coming out, one of which I have really no interest in seeing whatsoever because the CGI for it just looks absolutely terrible, but also to talk about the continued success of Sonic the Hedgehog, which is set to have a very nice, maybe not small, but typical drop from week 1 to week 2, which basically means that the film, in all likelihood, is going to end up making a crap ton of money by the end of its run, not just domestically, but also in the foreign market as well, making it a very profitable film. Could even be as early as this weekend, most likely at the very least by next weekend, so 2 weeks from now, we'll have that film making some decent profits at the very least. So I honestly think that there's a chance that we could get very close to that this upcoming weekend. It all depends on how it performs in the foreign marketplace, but this is indeed the projections from boxofficepro.com for this upcoming weekend, with Sonic the Hedgehog in week 2 coming out at number 1 once again, with only a 47% drop, estimated to make around $31 million domestically, bringing its entire domestic total to around $110 million. That's just amazing. That really is just amazing. And you all know my opinions on the film itself, and the review is live on the channel. But it is phenomenal that a film that in all likelihood would have been a giant bomb back in the fall if it had had its original release has now become a film that in all likelihood will be a pretty decent profit, arguably one of the best performing video game adaptation films of all time. And I think that is definitely something that they should be able to hold their heads high for. You know, Paramount should be very happy that they finally have a movie and a project and an actual a property that is making money and is not losing or bleeding money like they've actually had many others this past, over the past year or so. So it's nice to see them in the positive category with Sonic the Hedgehog. The new film coming out this weekend, and what is actually unique about this is I believe this is going to be the first film officially released under the 20th Century Studios label. So notice that no longer, ever since Disney took over, they've decided to change the names, and it's no longer 20th Century Fox, it is now 20th Century Studios. I actually just saw the new trailer for The Call of the Wild with the new logo, and it just looks really bad. It just looks stupid. It's the same overall design, but the fact that they were like, oh, we need to change Fox, and reports show that they did it for political reasons because they didn't want to be connected at all with Rupert Murdoch because of politics, to which I say, seriously, get over yourselves. It just looks bad, but I believe this is the first film. I know, River, I know. It ticks me off too, River. I know. But it is, I think, the first film to be officially released in theaters. Again, other films are down the pipe. They're going to have this logo too. But the first to get an actual theatrical release with this new logo, with this new name title for the studio. So 20th Century Studios finally gets its first release, and oh man, I think it's perfect for the now Disney-owned company to have that film be Call of the Wild, starring Harrison Ford and a very, very poorly designed CGI dog. It just frustrates me so much because I remember reading that book back in high school and for the most part enjoying it, and I thought to myself, you know what? They still have dogs that are trained. Go back just 8 years ago where you had a film like The Artist that ended up winning Best Picture. And one of the best parts of that movie was the fact that it had that little dog that was trained to do really amazing things. Imagine, if you will, because it actually looks like Harrison Ford is not just phoning this performance in. It actually looks like he's giving a little bit of his heart in it. Imagine if you actually had a real dog on screen for most of the scenes, right? I know that there's some things that the dog does in the movie, like jumping into the water and having to be, pushed down a river. And I understand you want to protect animals and animal safety, actor safety, things like that. But I really do wish that they had at least decided, okay, let's have a real dog in most of these scenes. And then for the more dangerous ones, then we can try and focus all of the money for the technology on trying to make that look as good as it possibly can. But then at the very least, you would have had a real dog in many of these scenes, especially the emotional ones between the dog and Harrison Ford. And if Harrison Ford's going to give an actual heartwarming performance, which it seems to be indicated by the trailers, you might as well give him something to work off of, which is not a completely crappy CGI rendition of a dog. So that's coming out this weekend, set to make $13 million in its opening weekend, which I'm sure is just not the number that they were going to look for. I can only imagine how much this film actually cost to make because, as we all know, films that feature heavy CGI tend to be pretty damn expensive. And as you can see here, $109 million is how much the overall production cost for this film means, which means that if you add in marketing, it probably costs, around 150, maybe closer to $170 million to make. And it's expected to make $13 million domestically in its opening weekend. I can't see that being a giant hit overseas just by the very nature of the story. Harrison Ford, yeah, he's a well-known person, but when you take him out of the Star Wars role, at least in modern times, and especially since he doesn't always put his all into his performances in films, he's not really going to be a guaranteed box office sensation, especially also since the era of the star, in my opinion, is pretty much dead. You know, when you have film actors and stars that have worldwide recognition, like even Will Smith, as I mentioned in a previous video this week, about how people have been saying, oh, well, because he's in this movie, it's going to make money. And, oh, the reason why Aladdin made money was because Will Smith was in it. And I think that's just not the correct way to look at films anymore. I don't think that actors are really ones that are going to bring in the people. I think it's the stories. I think it's the overall word-of-mouth campaigns. Those have a lot more impact on the success or failure of a film than the cast, right? Cast can sometimes have an impact, but even just ask Robert Downey Jr. Most people would say, oh, he's the heart and soul of what the Avengers have been. What are they going to do now that he's gone? But then he goes off to do Doolittle, which is going to be about $150 million loss of a film. So again, I think the age of the star is pretty much dead at this point. So Call of the Wild making $13 million on about $150 million total cost. That's not looking very good. We'll have to wait and see what the actual domestic number is and what the foreign total is by the end of the weekend as well. Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn, or simply now Harley Quinn Birds of Prey, which still does not work, is once again not going to do very well. $9.6 million in its third weekend, another 44% drop, which, hey, that kind of a drop is actually not bad. Again, it only had about a 48% drop or so in its first to second weekend. And a lot of other experts have actually pointed that out too, saying the drop-offs have actually not been that bad. The problem is that it had a terrible opening weekend that came in well below the projections, and therefore, even though it's only having these small drop-offs, because these drop-offs are still drop-offs from a smaller beginning opening, it's not going to be able to really make a whole lot of money, let alone break even, let alone maybe make a profit at the end of its run, but we'll have to wait and see. A 44% drop in the second to third weekend estimated there, but what is the most interesting to me is the fact that this film, Birds of Prey, will have made $75.4 million domestically, while Sonic the Hedgehog, which came out a week after, is already going to be at $110 million. Now, it took 4 days for Sonic to actually already outpace Birds of Prey, which had a week advantage on it at the box office, but because it's going to be $110 million here in the domestic marketplace, I imagine it's going to be pretty close to $100 million overseas by the end of the weekend, too. So I think that you'll have Sonic the Hedgehog and edging out Birds of Prey officially in the entire worldwide box office. While this film, Sonic, goes on to make bank at the box office, this film, Birds of Prey, will be scrapping the bottom of the barrel, doing everything it can to at least try, at the very least, to make its money back. But it's definitely not going to be a giant sense of profit. And hey, if it suits them for deciding to go political in their campaigning, in their interviews, and in their marketing, and also with little of the film that I have seen in just the really meh bleh film that they ended up making at the end of its run. Bad Boys for Life, still doing extremely well. 45% drop. Now this has been out for several weeks, has made $191.2 million. So again, very incredible sign for that. They have a new film from SDX called Brahms the Boy 2. It's set to make 5.6. Never heard of it. I think it's a horror film, probably, again, which, hey, whatever. These horror films end up costing nothing, so I'm sure it's going to make money. 1917, still doing pretty well after award season, $4.9 million. Blumhouse's Fantasy Island, which I've heard terrible things about, $4.1 million. And yet, even though it's already dropping 67% over a week, the film has already made its money back because it costs so little to make. So even though this film is dropping off like nothing I've ever seen before, dear Lord, these low-budget films, they somehow make their money back. The Photograph was another film, low budget, but still giant drop-off. Jumanji: The Next Level, dear Lord, man, this film has been out longer than Star Wars, and notice how Star Wars is nowhere near on this list, and yet Jumanji is still making over $3 million in a weekend. In fact, I honestly think that this might be one of the first weekends where Star Wars doesn't make at least $1 million at the box office, and it is still about $4 or $5 million. I know that some people are interested in this. It's about $4 or $5 million behind where Joker is. Joker, last time I checked, was around $1,074, $73 million. Rise of Skywalker is now at $1 billion, around $68 million worldwide. So we'll have to wait and see and check that out, because I know that a lot of us, including me, really, really, really hope that Joker ends up being able to hold out its edge and its lead over Skywalker. But of course, Rise of Skywalker will be pushed by, I know, seriously, River, it ticks me off too, because we all know that Disney will push Rise of Skywalker down everyone's throats just to put it over the edge. And I could totally see the executives at Disney saying, hey, we need to at very least be able to beat Joker, because we can't have a movie that cost $55 million and was rated R beating the last film in the Skywalker saga. But you know what? Even if you are able to push it over the edge, you're only going to get a few million or so above it, and the story is still going to remain true, that you either lost to or barely beat a small little film like Joker. Parasite, because of its Oscar wins, making a pretty decent amount of money too, with a 45% drop, making another $3 million. And again, I recommend it. I think it's a very good film. But that is a breakdown of the box office for the upcoming weekend. Are you excited for The Call of the Wild? Have you heard anything about Brahms the Boy 2? And those are the two major releases. But mostly, what are your thoughts about Sonic the Hedgehog and Birds of Prey? Again, I think Sonic the Hedgehog having a very reasonable drop here is going to bode well for it. I can't wait to do the breakdown of what the film is going to make by the end of its run. I'll be able to put that into my Excel sheet after the end of this weekend. I'll have to wait and see what those foreign totals end up being. Birds of Prey, as I've already put into the Excel sheet, will either lose a little bit of money or will make a little bit of money. It's not likely going to be very profitable, though. And there is actually a snowball's chance that if it has major drop-offs, which right now it isn't having. So again, it's doing okay at this point. It could actually, at least in the domestic marketplace. Foreign marketplace might be where the story is different. Again, we'll follow that as the weeks go on, where the film could end up being a giant loser, but we'll have to wait and see. But let me know your thoughts about this and all the things that are coming out very soon, especially Call of the Wild. Are you planning to see it? What are your thoughts on 20th Century Studios finally seeing the limelight in its first official movie? Ah, man. Disney, stop ruining things. The fact that you've ruined so many things, and now we can't even just have 20th Century Fox, all because we can't have Rupert Murdoch connected to the Fox brand, and it's just really sad and pathetic. But let me know your thoughts about this and all the things we talked about in the comments section below. Also, if you like this video, smash the like button, give me a subscribe. It helps me out a lot. You are all amazing and beautiful people. Have a wonderful day, and as always, God bless. And now to give a shout out to my February Patreon and Subscribe Star members: Animation Commentator, Brian P., Dion, David Brobrizik. Please let me know if I need to repronounce that name. DivX, Elizabeth M., Enrique Evangelista, Father Christopher Miller, Frank the Tank and the Shawhan Weird Dog Clan, Harold Francis, The Hunky Chunky Funky Monkey, Inflamed Wood, Interdrap Productions, Jason Clark, Jeffrey Toon, Jeffrey Lebowski, JJ Jonathan Jerembeck, Kenneth Cameo, Lady T, Mad Mitch Dunaway, Mr. Peabody and his evil twin with the beautiful hair, Orange Hat Reviews, Outpost Dyer, Perpetual Punster, Riff Magos, Rosetta Allen, Steve Glasker, Teresa Martin, Theodore Bendon, The DJD Show, and Tina B. And over on Subscribestar, Robert Revo, Larry, Mr. Roy, Glinzer, G2 Cool 99, Darkstar 57, Alice McCarthy, US 888-209 Fast, Dean Heiss, Hild Francis, J-Rod the Beer Guru, Nebanon G. Adams, and ZK Man. Then a shout out to Riff Racer Request and Sir Lance Elato and Mike Jackson. You rock. Thank you very much for being my Patreon Subscribestar members for the month of February. And if anyone else decides to join, at the next couple of days or so, I will add you into this list as well. You guys freaking rock. Have a wonderful one. And as always, God bless.